Welcome to Running Through the Jungle, guys. You see, it's just me. Uh, Brandon is off with his wife. He's got a sure she's got a birthday today. Justin had something emergency come up, so here I am. I'm your host Tim Lyons from Running Through the Jungle. I'm running Juan solo today. Welcome to the show. I'm going to go over our matchup versus the Bears. Excuse me, the Bears. Um, Playing in Paycor Stadium. I'm going to start the intro. Then I'll be right back with you guys. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Running Through the Jungle again. My name is Tim Lyons, one of your hosts from Running Through the Jungle. I'm filling in. I'm here by myself, my lonesome, my Juan solo show. I'm just going to go over some of the, score predictions, key to the games, concerns. Then I'll pick my defensive and offensive game balls. If we have any defensive game balls, I don't know. We'll see. So let's get into it. And it's going to be a quick show, just FYI. It's just me. So, I'm over here, just going off the hook. So we got the Bengals versus the Bears in Cincinnati. I know the Bears are 4-3, and the Bengals are 3-5. We had a real struggle last week against the Jets. I'm afraid that it's going to be another repeat, to be honest with you. A game that we should win, but we're probably not going to win. We're going to make these quarterbacks and, the running backs. I'll get into all that good stuff. But yeah, let's see here. So I think the over-under is at 51.5, a 3-point game. 3 points going to the Bengals. We're the underdog for Sunday's game versus the Bears. I'm gonna share my screen because we're gonna show some injury reports, as some of you might have known or be aware of. Joe Flacco has a shoulder sprain in his throwing shoulder. Here we go. Yeah, so this is brought to you by the Cincinnati Bengals.com or Bengals.com team injury report. We got Dylan Fairchild, who was a full practice today. Joe Flacco, like I said, did not practice because of his shoulder. Trey Hendrickson did not practice because of his hip. Cedric Johnson was a full practice. Dalton Reisner looks like he's dealing with an illness, so he did not practice. Cam Sample was a full practice. Logan Wilson and Marco Wilson both did not practice. Logan's dealing with a calf, and Marco's dealing with a hamstring injury. And then the Bears seem to have some injuries as well. Luther Burden, wide receiver, dealing with a concussion. Roshan Johnson, running back issue. DJ Moore, hip and groin issue, did not practice. Roma Dunze, heel, did not practice. DeAndre Swift, holy cow, groin injury, did not practice. And then wide receiver Alamid Zouk, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. Knee injury, did not practice. Looks like Cole Kmet, Stevenson, and Ogbong Big Miga were all Kmet and Stevenson were limited practices, and Amon was a knee, but he was a full practice. So we're going into this matchup. We don't know who's going to be quarterback. They said, I was watching the Zach Taylor news conference today. He was stating that there's a 50-50 chance that Joe Flacco is actually going to play on Sunday. It's kind of going to be probably a game time decision. We can only hope as Bengals fans that Joe Flacco does play, but we don't want him getting injured even more. But we're going to put the hopes on Jake Browning. Man, if that's the case, I'm just like, we might as well just toss in the towel. I don't know. I'm just not, low expectations over here, especially after what happened last week. I'm going to get into the offensive concerns right now because we're already talking about it. If Jake Browning starts, I think it's going to be a big offensive concern. Turnovers, the Bears, I think they lead the league in interceptions right now with 11. Let me stop sharing this screen. Sorry. They lead the league with 11 interceptions right now. I think they got like 5 forced fumbles. Man, I'm like, that's my biggest concern. If we are dealing with a Joe or I don't know why I keep saying Joe, a Jake Browning start, I'm just concerned that he's going to be playing erratically, but hopefully he, maybe these last couple of weeks have kind of put a halt and think about his gameplay and his decisions on what he's been doing. But yeah, turnovers is what I'm afraid of when it comes to offensive concerns, because of the Bears defense, they've been playing really good with the interceptions. We can get into it. Offensive opportunities. Speaking of the Bears secondary, the Bears have been known to give up some chunk plays. They just got beat by the Ravens last week against Tyler Huntley. And the Ravens defense isn't the best either, but offensive opportunities, I think if whoever's the quarterback, I'm hoping it's Joe Flacco. I think if Joe Flacco is given the opportunity to do what he's been doing these last couple of weeks, he's dropping back, getting protected pretty well, getting the ball out quickly to Jamar Chase and the rest of the gang. I think it's a great opportunity. And then also our running game, running the damn ball with Samaje Perine and Chase Brown. Both of them had a hell of a week last week. Chase Brown had a hell of a week against the Steelers as well. Getting that run game going. And then, of course, we have Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is just, I still believe it, and I might be biased, and I think it is a lot of bias, but I don't really care. But he's the best wide receiver in the league, Well, 1A, 1B, we'll say, whoever's opinion it is. Justin Jefferson's the other one. But, I think if Joe Flacco can get that ball out quickly and get Jamar Chase the ball quickly, or T. Higgins or Noah Fant, I think we'll have a good pass game. And, of course, our offensive line's still playing pretty damn good ball. I think Joe's been sacked 4 times in the last 3 games, something like that. So if they can continue to protect Joe Flacco, I don't see a problem with the offense, but, you never know. Like I said, the Bears defenses, they're leading the league with 11 interceptions and 5 forced fumbles. So, they're having a pretty good year, even though, they do give up some chunk plays every now and then. And then let me just go ahead and get into my defensive concerns. Defensive-wise concerns. The whole damn defense, maybe? That's my biggest concern. We don't know what we're going to get with, everybody. We want to blame Al Golden. Yeah, he's defensive coordinator. I agree with you. But the lack of talent that we have in that defensive backfield is just really concerning to me. That secondary has not played great. Our corners, our safeties, not played great. We haven't been getting great play by the linebackers and even the defensive line right now. We can't get any pressure on anybody. Can't sack anybody. Last week, we didn't sack Justin Fields at all. We were making fun of Jordan Battle yesterday because of his coverage, and Geno Stone hasn't done anything at all. I think that was a flash in the pan thing when we got him from the Ravens. DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, Josh Newton. They're not playing the greatest ball on earth either. I know that they had a team meeting, a players only meeting. And he said this is the last one they're going to have and the only one they're going to have. But when you have a team meeting of players, I mean, they know they're not playing the best. And I'm not going to put it all on them, but I'm going to put it on Al Golden as well as play calling, his formations, his coverages that he's doing. I don't know, but a lot of it to me is like, can I blame the DC completely or not? Because Duke Tobin and the front office, they made no defensive moves during the offseason besides bringing over TJ Slayton. I understand that they wanted to, bring him over to help with the run game, but one guy is not going to stop the run game. And like my biggest defensive concern is we're going to be letting Caleb Williams, and I'm not a fan of Caleb Williams. I've never have been a fan of Caleb Williams. I'm a Notre Dame fan, as you guys all know. Caleb Williams, he had a good year when he was with USC, but I'm not a big fan of him. He can make plays with his legs, he can extend plays, but he also can throw some turnovers also, and that's one of my defensive opportunities is getting Caleb Williams off his stride and not letting them get into an actual pattern or rhythm. A rhythm. My opportunity. Don't let Caleb Williams in that run game and the rest of the game get into a defensive rhythm, because if we can keep him off his game, I think we'll be okay. But here we go with the defensive concern. The Bengals defense just seems to not be able to get these quarterbacks off their rhythm. Look what even though we beat Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers was still having a day, even though he had 2 interceptions. But one of them was a bad interception on him, and the other one was a freak play, interception. Then last week, Justin Fields 0-7. Jets come in. Justin Fields got sacked 9 times a week before, and we can't even sack him at all. And then of course, the run game. The run game. Jets. We let the run game. Breece Hall run all over us. We allowed over 505 yards is what we allowed last week, and I'm afraid it's going to be a repeat this week. We're gonna make Caleb Williams look like just a beast. Like he's just, oh yeah, Bears fans will be like, yeah, we got the right guy. DeAndre Swift's gonna go in there and run the ball all over us. I think they're averaging 120 yards a game or something. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But the Bengals defense, they have their work cut out for them this Sunday. I don't care if we're playing against the Bears, the Jets, or whoever, the worst team in the league, which we already got beat by the worst team in the league. So, the Bengals defense is just not, it's not clicking. It's just not, it hasn't been working like this for years. So I'm not going to just say it's a this year issue. It's been these years issue. We're wasting away Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's and T Higgins, prime time years on losing games because our defense can't close a series or, stop a 3rd and 9, when it's just all you got to do is just stop them on 3rd and 9, stop them from getting that first down. And I know I'm spending a lot of time on the defense, but, it's a big, major concern for me. It's disappointing. It's disappointing as a Bengals fan. And, I know we've had a lot of disappointment in our years as Bengals fans. And, we had this hope, this shining hope of Joe Burrow coming to Cincinnati and Jamar Chase and everybody. And then Joe goes down. And I know we're saying this again, Joe goes down again this year. Last year he played great, but defense did not play great again. Our offense started off slow. Our offense seems to be doing great. I'm not going to, even though, Zach Taylor likes to piss down his leg when it's time, when it really matters, making stupid play calls. But, it's just disappointing. It really is. But anyways, I'll stop babbling on. I'm going to take, that's not what I wanted to do. Not final thoughts. I'm going to take a quick commercial break and I'll be right Welcome back to Running Through the Jungle. I'm your host, Tim Lyons. Your one and only host, Tim Lyons, right here. So, I was kind of going over the matchup. I brought up Bleacher. I had Bleacher up the whole time. Like I was saying about, the Bengals, look at this, points per game, we're ranked 21st. Points allowed, we're last in the league. 29th in total yards per game. Passing yards, we're 21st, 31st in rushing yards. And then yards allowed, we're last in the league with 407 a freaking game. It's just disappointing. It's disheartening. It's no fun. It's no fun being a Bengals fan, but thank God we have college football. If you got, I know a lot of you Bengals fans are probably either Bearcat fans or Buckeye fans. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so we have that going for us. We have the college football going on, and then of course we got the World Series happening right now between the Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's always a fun thing to do and watch. All right, so I'm gonna get into my offensive game ball. If I can get it to come up, there we go. Sorry, offensive game ball. I wrote down. Who did I write down? I wrote down Chase Brown. I think if we have a repeat of the last couple of weeks, even though the defense there. Anyways, Chase Brown, running the ball. He doesn't just run the ball. He also catches, little out passes, screen passes, and stuff like that. But the way that offensive line has been blocking for the run game, even Samaje Perine. If I have an opportunity, a person to actually pick between Samaje and Chase Brown, I think Samaje's on the up, and we've seen what he's done throughout the years. He had a hell of a game last Sunday. Chase Brown's been playing good ball for the last couple of weeks. That offensive line has been creating just freaking monster holes for us to go. Hey, what's up, KP from KC5? What's going on, man? Thanks for showing up. It's just me and my lonesome Juan solo show today. But I think Chase Brown, if we can continually run the ball, make smart decisions, get the ball out quick, I think Chase Brown, that's my game ball, but I'm the run the ball type of guy. So, but let's get into defensive game balls, if any. I don't know anymore. Like I said earlier, defensive game ball, it's going to be hard to choose anymore because, I know we always in the past, I know I am always in the past, I used to pick Mike Hilton when he was with us. He was a hell of a nickel. He'd come in there and get sacks and, wreck up the run game a little bit, be all over the field. Did you say defense? What deep? You know what? KP, you're absolutely right. Did you say defense? What defense? Exactly. I know. Yeah, Geno Atkins. Yeah, he's bringing up Geno Atkins. He's one of my favorite defensive tackles from back in the day. It's too bad that how it went down for him. He got a back injury and he never came back. So, but it's just like I said, bringing up these old guys, these other guys that we always talk about, Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson this year has been kind of we can't get any pressure on the quarterback. Shamar Stewart was drafted. Not a big threat. We've seen some positive play from Chris Jenkins sometimes, Miles Murphy every once in a while. Osai had actually a pretty good start of the season. Cam Sample, or not Cam Sample, Cam. Oh my gosh, I'm losing his name. I don't know. It's like defensive game ball for me. If I had to pick a defensive game ball, I guess I would go with DJ Turner because he's been kind of our little shining, our little shiny spot of the defense. But I don't know. So I'll just say DJ Turner. Yeah, I agree with you. 100% KP. I begged for Mike Green, and he looked much better than Shamar. Agree. I 100% agree with you. Mike Green did look a hell of a lot better, but I know they were talking about, off the field issues or whatever concerns. I know that was an issue during the draft time, but they went with Shamar Stewart, who got like 1.5 sacks in his whole 3.5 sacks, whatever the hell it was, his whole entire college career at Texas A&M. Yeah, boo. But so that's my defensive game ball. If I had to give any to DJ Turner, final thoughts. Final thought here. My expectation right now has been pretty low of the Bengals. After we, what? Hold on. I'll refrain. I'll backtrack a little bit. When we beat the Steelers, I was like, okay, here we go. Here we go. Defensive was still kind of I was like, nah, I don't know if the defense is going to be able to get this done, but maybe they'll pull it together. But then we see them come out in the first half and they're playing good football. Then the second half, they just shit the bed. If I would like to see some more shining moments. I would like to see Joe Flacco out there in the offense, doing what they do, move the football, score touchdowns, get us in field goal range, kick field goals. Evan McPherson's been having a good season this year after coming back from his, I think it was a hamstring or quad last year. Can't remember what it was. But it's just like, I want to see that shimmering of hope again, but disappointment from the Cincinnati Bengals in that front office has been just, it overshadows that our glimmer of hope. And I just want to see something different. I want to see something different. I want to see the front office do something different. I want to see them make off-season moves with the defense, the offense, both sides of the ball that are meaningful, and not be bringing over guys that, was a backup in Kansas City. And then he says, oh, I want to go back to Kansas City. And so they released him. And now Kansas City picked him up. I can't remember what the hell his name is. Mike, I can't remember whoever it was. I can't remember what his name is, but he was one of Chris Jones's, defensive tackle tandems over there. So I know we just released him not too long ago, but I want to see the Bengals front office actually make us like surprised. Look what the Steelers are doing. Yeah, Penny, that's who it is. Thanks, KP. Appreciate it. I just want to see the Bengals front office make moves. I want to see them make moves. I want to see them do stuff that we're not used to see them doing. I know us getting Joe Flacco in the middle of, and when we did, that was a surprise to all of us, and I'm sure it was. We had to make a move. They actually made a move offensively, but defensively, I don't know if people just don't want to come to Cincinnati and play for the Cincinnati Bengals and Mike Brown. And I know that has been a subject point, a while ago as well. That people don't want to. Cincinnati wasn't a desirable place to come play at. It, like, as of right now, I'm starting to think, and I mentioned this weeks ago when Joe Burrow went down and Jake Browning was throwing great passes to the other team, his interceptions. Time to put Trey on the trade block. It was time to get rid of Trey. And I think, it's either the Browns, Mike Brown is all in on Trey Hendrickson. And, we're going to just keep him and let him finish out his time here. We're going to have this off-season drama, or are we just going to let him walk? I'm sorry, but yes, exactly, KP. Trade Trey now. Yeah, and that's how I feel about it. I think that we need to trade Trey, get some draft capital. But as I think KP said it yesterday during our Roaring Reactions, he said, but, we can trade him. But when draft time comes up, we're gonna piss down our leg anyways. We're gonna screw that up too. We haven't had a good defensive draft. And look who, and you're mentioning his name right there. We haven't had a good draft from defensively since Jesse Bates. And that was the last time that we actually had a good draft, a defensive draft from what I remember for the defense, because honestly, you want to look at great defensive players that we drafted. Geno Atkins, okay, great. Carlos Dunlap, he was good during his prime. Don't get me wrong. But ever since then, Jesse Bates was the last really defensive player that we drafted who was, actually pretty damn good. And our drafting skills, it's been awful. It's been god awful. So, but anyways, I don't want to ramble on more and more, just to, you guys know how I feel. Low expectations, but I'm still gonna, like we say here on Running Through the Jungle, hope is not a strategy, but I'm hoping that the Cincinnati Bengals can beat the Bears on Sunday, because it's disappointing when we're just losing games that we should be winning. We're winning games. It's awesome when we're winning games we should be losing, but in this case, it's like we are losing games and losing games. So I don't know. But anyways, that's my final thought. And I know I haven't said it today. Man, I look awful. I need to shave. Look at this. Woo. But anyways, I know I haven't said it, but like and subscribe. KP, thank you for coming to the show. I appreciate you, brother. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you share with your friends. Check out our all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, whatever else there is out there for the podcast world. Go out there and give us a listen, download, and give us 5 stars, 10 stars, however many stars you want. But definitely come back on Friday, though. Friday I'll have an exciting show. Justin will hopefully be here. I'm gonna be doing my NFL pick'em show. I cover the whole NFL, not just Cincinnati Bengals, because I want you guys to really see what knowledge that Justin and I and the rest of the crew have. You can catch Brandon Herriott, our other host. You can catch him on the Homies. He's usually on, I think it's SCN Steel Curtain Network, or the Know It Alls. You can check him out on the Homies on Friday at 8 o'clock, I think. But definitely come back, watch Running Through the Jungle, watch our roaring reactions. And then, like I said, Friday it's Halloween, but come check us out if you're, not going. Like, I'm an old man, I'm not going out and going trick or treating. I'm not going to no Halloween parties. That's for for you young kids out there. But anyways, I will see you guys again on Friday. You guys have a great rest of your week. Hoo day.